Tappei has just released Arc 8 Chapter 28, and this video will be a summary of the chapter. Highly recommend you check out my Arc 8 Chapter 27 summary. Anyways, let's begin. When Subaru heard of Ublik's proclamation about Lewis, he wrapped his head around to think about how she would be pivotal against the undead. She's kind, she tries hard, she helps out, but there are other people who also fit that criteria. Of course though, she had the authority of gluttony. Subaru himself had the power of sloth and greed. Sloth obtained from Betelgeuse, and greed obtained from Regulus. These powers circulating in Subaru's inner being. Subaru didn't choose to take these powers, but they were passed onto him like a baton. So Subaru makes a declaration. If you choose to live as Speaker instead of Louis Arnett, then you will use your powers in the same way I do mine. A person can be good or evil, it depends on their actions. Louis, Lai and Roy, they were sinners. However, if they were to use their powers in a better way, they could walk a better path. Star siblings, all named after stars, they used their powers for bad. Hence, that's the reason why Subaru gave the name Speaker, also named after a star. She will represent a new path, and so with that, she will eat. The scene changes. Lamia, who was thrust backwards, created an opening. Goz seized that opportunity. He was surrounded by 20 different Lamia clones. However, at that moment, all of them were out of sync. Goz believes it was the work of Vincent Valakia, and he wants to weep. Goz dismantles his hammer into two separate components, and then he smashes them together. A shockwave rings out, hitting the Lamias. This weapon weighs as much as 10 people, crafted specifically for Goz. Goz can also determine the unique vibrations given off by each unique life form, meaning he can simply create a shockwave which targets specific people. The Lamias present around Goz all shattered. The same thing happened in other carriages. Roswell used fire, wind and earth against Lamia. Garfiel dismantled Lamia, the pruning squad, and even the carriage itself with no distinction between them. Emilia, who was fighting Lamia and was freezing the carriage and reinforcing it as it broke down. All of them in that moment seized the chance and destroyed the Lamias with them. The scene changed. Lamia gets up and she spins around, kicking Speaker away. Subaru and Beatrice also fly backwards because they're holding onto Speaker's hand, and Beatrice casted Marak on Speaker, so all of them were super lightweight. As they rose into the air, Julius dashed underneath Subaru, decimating the pruning squad and thrusting at Lamia. Lamia then blocks with her Yang sword and they collide. The next attack, however, never came, because Lamia's back was pierced with the half-melted barbarian sword which Vincent was holding. Of course they knew that the undead had a vital point, the bug inside them which was the nucleus of their being. Lamia, however, started to crumble, her hands disintegrated, and her Yang sword dissolved. As she dissolves, she mutters the name of Balleroy. Abel's eyes flicker upon hearing that name. Subaru did not understand the name, but the name, of course, elicited a reaction from the people who were present. Immediately, Julius uses Ol Cluseria, and a beam of light hits the carriage. However, Julius protects them with his rainbow light. The roof of the carriage is ripped off as a dragon rider jumps down, grabs the Lamia, and then jumps back up to his flying dragon. The people are shocked, with Flop and Medium shouting out to Brother Bao. Balleroy, who just rescued Lamia, flies away in the opposite direction. Medium tries to chase after Balleroy, but Flop stops her. The pruning squad, still present, distracts Julius and the others, trying to buy time for Lamia and Balleroy to escape. At the same time, the old man, tired and aching, breathes. His meteor had run out. We see that he had been saved by a golden panther. This golden panther was delivering a message when she saw the old man fly from the carriage and helped him. With that, the scene changes. The Crystal Palace, which was beautiful, was overrun with undead. There was no life to fight them. Damage and destruction was everywhere. However, despite the destruction, her crimson eyes and face are beautiful. Her snow-white skin was dirty and her dress was torn, but she was of course still very beautiful. "You've got something to say, Prisca," the voice rang out. Priscila, who was chained to the ceiling, looks down. She looks at the woman she killed 9 years ago, who looks the exact same as the day she died, the Poison Princess. Lamia arrives, her body crumbling from her last fight. However, it still continues to disintegrate. Lamia states that she can only talk normally to Prisca and Vincent. However, a voice rings out telling Lamia to go, as her role is now over. Lamia then says her final words, saying that Prisca is a pretty little sister, which Priscila remembers. These were the last words that Lamia said just before she was killed the first time. With that, Lamia now finally crumbles into dust and dies for the final time. A man appears, and Priscila asks if he was the person who brought Lamia here. The man, Balleroy, states that Lamia herself walked down the stairs, so she was living up to her elegance of royalty. Balleroy brings out a plate of food and asks Priscila if she wants to eat, but Priscila declines. Balleroy, however, insists, taking the lid off the tray, revealing the plate of food, and a nice smelling aroma wafts across the room. Balleroy states he can't eat or taste food, but he's made this countless times, but he apologized for using common ingredients and common food. Balleroy stabs the food with his fork and feeds Priscila. Balleroy states that he remembers doing this before when he had to feed prisoners. Priscila then asks why he is destroying the Empire, and what is it that he wants. Balleroy states he will not answer the first question, but will answer the second. After all, he answers because he has a grudge. The scene changes. The man runs and slips, banging his helmet-clad head against the wooden box. He had to escape, or else Vivi the Decapitator would arrive. A voice rings out, "I'm here." The man drew his blue dragon sword and swung, but he hit no target. Instead, the helmet-clad man, Aldebaran, felt searing pain under his armpit. His dragon sword dropped from his hand. The man, Viva, tells Aldebaran to not resist. Al tried to stem the bleeding and looked at the blue-haired man with a curved sword. The man was not going to give Al a painless death, as he's experienced dozens of times by now. The man simply wants to experiment with the limits of the human body. Al says running doesn't work, fighting doesn't work, and asks the undead to give him one shot. The undead, Viva the Decapitator, responds saying it doesn't make sense. Al then believes that it's useless to talk to him. Al looks at his blue dragon sword. He can use this time to jump for his sword. He couldn't hesitate. Aldebaran darts for his sword and grabs it, holding it up to his own neck, and Viva says that he seems eager to lose his life. Al's sword, however, was knocked out of his hand by a small child, and the sword slid across the floor. Viva the Decapitator attacked the small child, but the small child easily disarmed Viva and destroyed their torso and body as he crumbles away to dust. Cecilis says that he doesn't like walking in water or on the wet ground with his Zori. By the way, Zori is like the shoes that he wears. Al asks if he can stay around. However, Cecilis points to the rooftop, saying that he likes Al's appearance and he wants to stay with him, but walking on the wet surface feels disgusting, so he tells Al to not bleed out. Since Cecilis called Al an old man, Al introduced himself as Al, and he calls Cecilis a naughty boy. Cecilis laughs and says that Al talks just like his boss. Al then mutters to himself, "Wait for me, Priscila, I will definitely save you." For those wondering, that's the exact words that Subaru says to Emilia. The scene changes. The three-headed dragon crumbles to dust, with all three of the heads lacking power. The dragon's massive body was littered with ninja tools. It was unknown which one of the attacks were fatal. Halibel mutters that he isn't really human, so he doesn't really go well with zombies. Defeating a dragon of that size was hard work, and remembering what Anastasia said, it was possible for those three heads to reappear. Perhaps he could win the next round, but it would be hard to not get others involved like he did this time. But then again, Anastasia has Julius by her side, but Halibel bets that he's probably not as strong as he is. Halibel watches the three-headed dragon crumble to dust before he smokes his pipe and turns to see where the dragon carriage is. He states he wants to eat candy, but then says, "Oh wait, I'll die if I eat candy." With that, he chases after the dragon carriage, and the scene, of course, ends and the chapter ends. So, interesting chapter. So, the one thing to take away from this chapter is that Speaker ate Lamia's name, but everyone could still remember her, which means that Speaker's authority is still gluttony, but it's changed. Similar to how, for example, Regulus's authority changed when it went to Subaru, Speaker's authority of gluttony is different. And she was the only zombie that was crumbling to death. So obviously, Speaker's authority, when she ate Lamia, it seemed to have nullified her ability to regenerate or stay living as an undead. So I guess we'll get more information as it progresses.